This is the Professional Henchman here with Dynamic Entry, and it's out, folks! Suicide Squad, as directed by James Gunn, has been released on HBO Max, and wow! I knew I was gonna go in and have fun. I told myself not to take it too seriously, and it turns out it was way better than I expected. Can't be mad at that at all. So today, the crew here on Dynamic Entry is gonna bring you a little bit of a review. Spoiler warning, alright? I'm gonna say it now. If you get past this point, it's your fault if you hear about anything from the show. So a note, we won't put anything from like the actual review that will spoil anything in any previews or reels or nothing like that. But in this video, if you get past this point, you're gonna hear something that you might not want to. So that's your warning. Past that, we're not gonna sugarcoat or baby anything.
The Suicide Squad, that's right, this is going to be the remake / reboot of the other Suicide Squad film from a few years back, directed by one David Ayer of End of Watch fame. We expected a lot going into that film, and we didn't get a whole lot. It was trashed. You've heard about it millions of times, how bad it was, and I'm going to go on record and say, hey, I enjoyed it, okay? Don't tell anybody. I know it wasn't good, but I enjoyed it. It's like, what, McDonald's? You're like, it's not good, but you still enjoy it. That's how I felt about that film. So going into this film, I was like, hey, it can only get either worse or better. And I didn't think it was going to get worse because we got James Gunn directing this one, the guy who did Guardians of the Galaxy, who recently had gotten dropped by Marvel for getting canceled. So DC picked him up and was like, hey, we got a posse film you can make. Do it with these ones. Do it with the Suicide Squad. And he was like, okay, I'll make that film. And he did. This film is pretty much Guardians of the Galaxy, but ramped up on the violence, on the language, on stuff like that. It's more vulgar. So yeah, pretty much it's kind of formulaic at this point. He remade Guardians, but made it a little bit more vulgar. And Guardians was good. Guardians was really good. And so Suicide Squad, following in those steps, was really good.
So Suicide Squad follows Task Force X, who is an elite group of supervillains with bombs in their necks. And Amanda Waller says, hey, you want some time taken off of your sentence? How about you go do some Black Ops stuff for me? Hush, hush, don't tell anyone about it. And we'll all get along just fine. And it never goes that smoothly. People die all the time in the Suicide Squad because they don't listen or they do something dumb. The movie actually opens up with this kind of scene, and I think everybody that they chose to be in the initial Suicide Squad or Group A, or Team A as they end up getting called, fantastic.
It's a lot to like. John Cena, he did really good. I was surprised. I'd seen him in Cockblockers. He did okay in that. I was like, he's not bad. But this one, he did a lot more stuff that I thought he would do with his range. The Rock is not like a good actor, but he's a good action star. John Cena, you can see he has a little bit more range than I would say The Rock has. So I really appreciated his performance. He's jacked as fuck. I was like, damn. Walking around, showing that shit off. Good for you, buddy. I'm proud of you. I did like his little back and forth with Idris's character about them pretty much being the same thing and just competing. Thought that was pretty funny. He's pretty cool. He's a piece of shit, but he's cool. I'm a little bit more excited now to see the show, having seen his performance, because if you didn't know, there's going to be a Peacemaker show, which at the end credits scene that we got here for this, you could have expected it about him living pretty much, because if you knew that he was getting a show, you're like, how's he going to get a show if he died in this one? Obviously, he didn't die, so there you go. That was a little, I guess, spoiler for you going into the movie. He knew that already. But yeah, John Cena did a really good job. Idris did a really good job.
Now, I will say I'm pleasantly surprised by Idris Elba's Bloodsport. The only thing I knew about this guy was that, he was a soldier at one point, and then he wasn't, and then, he was with Intergang, so he has, they're a group in Metropolis who gets, alien tech, and they use it, because that's the only way you're going to be able to fight Superman on a daily basis, right, is to have some type of alien technology. So his suit's, made of shit that becomes weapons. I thought that was really cool. CGI budget got used a lot on that, but it was a nice suit. Cool colorway that they did instead of his, classic, just gray tactical gear. They added a little brass accenting or copper color. It was nice.
Milton. Gotta shout out my boy Milton, okay? He was probably one of the biggest highlights for me. I didn't mention him earlier. I thought about it as Chris was talking. Milton. I love him, okay? Very much like the one guy from Deadpool 2 who's just there. He's like, I saw the ad. I thought it'd be fun. That guy and Milton should team up and just be a unit.
And die in there on Syria.
Yeah, it's always just so funny to see a regular guy hanging out with the superheroes. So when they're doing their big old like walking up scene, and you just see Milton walking up, you're like, wearing fucking chocolates. He's like, oh.
He had like a bag of snacks. And
Yeah, he had empanadas. He was ready. So my boy Milton, I love him. Justice for Milton. Bring him back, please.
Peacemaker, John Cena's character. Yeah. Holy crap, sleeper hit of the movie. Him and Nawe, fucking Sylvester Stallone as King Shark. They were both fantastic.
King Shark, aka Nanawe, he is pretty cute. It's pretty much the Groot of this one. So we'd seen it before, but it still works. You know, you got the cute little character who like doesn't really say much. He's just kind of there to be cute. Appreciated it.
Ratcatcher 2 has become a lot of people's secret bae. Ratcatcher 1, I was not expecting Taika, but I was really happy to get Taika in the film. Special shouts out to Pete Davidson, by the way. Just great. Piece of shit. Just love him.
Harley. I love Harley. I think she's probably my favorite still in the whole cast. The whole cast is really good. I mean, they cast him for a reason. Even Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang and Joel Kinnaman. I know he doesn't have the best track record of his career, but Joel Kinnaman did a really good job as Rick Flag. Anyway, that's not the point. Harley. She's always been a bright spot in these films. Even the original Suicide Squad film and the Emancipation of Harley Quinn, the Birds of Prey movie, she's the highlight there. And in this one, she's the highlight for me. Her, the whole government scene, her just killing the dictator out of nowhere. You're like, oh shit, I forgot that you are Harley Quinn. You're a badass. And you see her display all these skills that she has and the big fight scene that she has with the flowers flying everywhere and her like jumping and killing everybody. And you're like, damn. You forget that she's fucking circus trained, she's hand-to-hand combat trained, she's a psychologist, so she knows like she couldn't get tortured. She's like, I know all this shit, I've seen it all before. And you're like, damn, that's really cool that they're still keeping true to Harley and making her a badass through everything. In every movie that she's been in, I've enjoyed her. Margot Robbie is another one of those like Robert Downey Jr. characters where it's like, yeah, you are that character, you did a really good job, and killed it.
I did also like that a lot of the B plots were touched on throughout the movie. Like I expected the stuff with Bloodsport's daughter, but then seeing like the fact that the first dictator that we see is like trying to woo Harley and like get her to marry him, and they have this whole thing. Learning like Ratcatcher's backstory and having that be like a little D plot under the entire film as you like slowly get more and more of that information. Polka Dot Man is amazing. I did not expect him to be one of the more energetic characters in the entire cast, and he did great. Everybody did really, really good as far as how they gave life and personality to these characters. And by the way, one of my favorite moments in the whole fucking film is the beginning when Team A goes out and they're placing bets on how long people are going to survive and shit. Like if that isn't the most, just the government characters are the scummiest, worst characters in the movie. There are secret anti-heroes that come around in the end, and they're great. I love them. That was such a good decision to make them the way that they were.
All right, going into dislikes. What we disliked about this movie. Number one, which I was just about to mention in the last segment, the setting. Corto Maltese, however you want to pronounce it. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I'm not the biggest fan of just like tropical settings. I guess it's kind of like tropical. It's pretty much, I think it's supposed to be like Cuba.
Where else
type.
did they use it? Because they used it in Young Justice, but it's not Santa Prisca, because Santa Prisca is where Bane is.
I don't remember. All I know is DC doesn't have actual cities. They just have cities that are based off of actual cities. So I think this is pretty much just like Cuba. Although in one of the scenes, if you see him running, there's like a Barcelona like decal. So you're like, oh, it's not. Is it Spain? Because Barcelona, and it's not Barcelona, obviously. So I think it's more like a Cuban type vibe. But anyway, the setting itself, not the biggest fan because I just personally don't like tropical settings because I hate the beach. That's probably like nitpicky, but I didn't like that.
I want this on record. The Thinker didn't have to molest Starro. We didn't have to have the detail in the film. I didn't need it. I didn't want to think about it. And here we are. This is my life now, and I'll never get that back, James Gunn. I hope you know that forever, James Gunn.
Starro, he's disgusting. I hate him. Every time he's on screen, because I watched the movie twice already, I'm disgusted. I don't like his little armpit shit that gets the Star Wars that come out of it.
That's what they're like.
It's disgusting. I don't like it.
Really good.
It's like a seahorse when they're pregnant, they just throw out their babies. Disgusting. His little back flaps, disgusting. His eyeball being gooey, disgusting. Starro is just disgusting, okay? I hate him. I hate Starro so much.
Other dislikes as far as the movie goes, I like I said earlier, like you can't ask every single action film to innovate and change things and make things more spectacular. And while they did a lot of really cool stuff, like the screen transitions where maybe flames or smoke or water would say like the next day, 8 hours before, that kind of stuff, it was cool. I liked it because it was comic booky, but at the same time, that is like the only major change that the film did. And past that, it's very much the superhero formula that we've had time and year and decade again. We've been doing it forever. So it just, trying to think of other complaints. I really liked this movie. The audio, as much as I liked the Guardians feel of it and like playing songs after every like couple things, it felt too much like the first time we did Suicide Squad. A big problem with the original Suicide Squad was that the original cut of the movie came out and then they didn't like it and they didn't want to spend as much money on it, so they cut it, and they took the company that edited the commercial for the Suicide Squad was hired to then cut the movie, and it's why it feels like a fucking music video the whole time. This had some of those elements still, and I didn't always want the music there. I will say one of my favorite things, I know that we already moved past that, but like one of my favorite things is a fight, spoilers, between Rick Flag and Peacemaker. And it's where it's all seen through like the reflection of the helmet. That is like one of my favorite parts of the movie. And it's undercut by like how the scene before it and the scene after it, action's going on, but they're like throwing on more like popular music. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I understand. Like we have to have a scene that has like a big nod song to something, but like we could just have natural noises and let the drama of the scene build. You know what I mean?
This movie overall, when you're watching it, I found myself doing this, like at the end when they're in the helicopter and they're all like laying their head down, whatever, and I'm reflecting as they're reflecting on like the journey that they just had. I was like, damn, was this a good hero movie? And I'm like, oh, it's not like a hero movie. And then I thought about it, I'm like, oh, it's the Suicide Squad. So obviously it's not a hero movie, and I know that sounds so obvious, like obviously it's not a hero movie. But by the end of it, it feels like a hero movie because they do the right thing. And I'm like, oh damn, this wasn't a good hero movie, but it was a good Suicide Squad movie. Because if you watch the animated films, this gave me very Assault on Arkham vibes, and it's just like, it's cool to see these just anti-heroes basically doing the right thing sometimes, and they don't have any boundaries. They can kill whoever the fuck they want, they can do whatever they want, but at the end of the day, if they do the right thing, then they're justified in their own eyes of doing all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? This was a good Suicide Squad movie. Was it my favorite Suicide Squad cast, like of characters? Probably not, but that's the whole thing. I think he was meaning to, James Gunn, was meaning to bring light to these other characters. Kind of like when he took on the project of Guardians of the Galaxy. If you didn't read the comics, you didn't really know what Guardians were. I'm one of them. I was like, when it was coming out, I was like, this is fucking stupid. Well, I don't want to watch that. And it came out and I'm like, oh damn, sleeper hit of the year. So it's cool to see him bring light to these characters like Polka Dot Man that you're never going to see anywhere. Calendar Man, he was there for a second. That was hilarious. Yeah, and King Shark has always been a badass, but giving him more of like a personality. And Bloodsport, I never heard of him. Is he even a real character? Probably. I don't know. So yeah, the only recognition you have from the first Suicide Squad movie, which you've gotten from that movie, now you're like, oh, I know who these characters are. They get killed off, most of them, in the first like 5 minutes. And you're like, oh shit. Now I have to get used to these new characters. And they do a good job of doing that, and so I appreciated that. But yeah, if I was making this movie again, I would not have picked these characters to represent my Suicide Squad, but I do appreciate how James Gunn made you care about them, and overall, this was a good Suicide Squad story.
The movie does, as Nate mentions, follows a really standard mode of storytelling, which, I mean, you can't ask every film to innovate. I'm sorry. Like, let's just call it what it is. Some films should just be fun, and this film was really fun. It was always doing something or saying something or showing something that maintained my attention. I wasn't like rushing to get my phone to like look at Instagram or something because I was getting bored. There was not really anything that like didn't keep me engaged. So I really appreciate it for that. And the ending was nice. It was more than I expected. And I'm happy for what I got.
So that's going to be our review / thoughts on the Suicide Squad movie. Let us know down below what you thought of the movie. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? Why not? Who not? Whatever you want to say it down below. Subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at Dynamic Entry. Go listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, Dynamic Entry. we're very good about getting that name. You can follow us on TikTok too. That's the only place that it's a little bit different. It's the Dynamic Entry. So go support us there, whatever you want to do. And, you know, if you haven't seen this movie already, sorry for spoiling it for you. But if not, go watch it.